Last month I bought a game called DayZ. It's the standalone version of the Arma 2 mod of the same name. And it sucks. It's not that the game itself is bad. Quite the contrary. It's a great game. Or at this point it's more like a great concept, since the game itself is nowhere near finished. It's a early alpha, public test. It's that the people playing the game suck. It's not just limited to DayZ players. The issue is modern gamers in general suck. In the case of DayZ, they suck at immersive games. You see, DayZ is an immersive post-apocalyptic sandbox zombie survival simulator. The keywords here are immersive and simulator. Those are an integral part of what the game is. They are the things that make DayZ different from the massive amounts of other zombie games and other survival sandbox games. Kinda like how The Walking Dead is about a dramatic story. DayZ's idea is to be an immersive survival simulator. A role-playing game, if you will. Sometimes it's even pitched as an MMORPG, and that definition would not actually be completely incorrect. A traditional MMORPG is an MMOCRPG, where C stands for computer. The difference between a RPG and a CRPG will take a long while to explain in detail, but in short, a proper RPG lets you play your own role, tell your own story, while a CRPG follows a railroad set by the game's creators that you can only affect to a limited degree. RPGs traditionally are pen and papers, Dungeons and Dragons style tabletop games where the setting and the story can be influenced on the fly by the game master and the players. While CRPGs are games such as Baldur's Gate and Mass Effect that have a predefined story and choices that the player can make, but all the choices are predefined. There's nothing happening on the fly in those games. As such, even we're lacking things that people commonly would think are instrumental to RPGs, such as dice rolling, or a lot of numeric stats like levels, or character classes, or DayZ is undeniably an RPG. You are supposed to play a role in DayZ, you are supposed to immerse yourself in its world, and neither of those things are set in stone by the game's developers. Role-playing, playing a role, is something that most DayZ players and gamers in general don't understand at all. Role-playing is not about doing what a guy in our situation would most probably do if this was real life. Role-playing is not putting on a funny accent, calling people thou and thee, and playing out the bird-giving situation every time you roll a new character in World of Warcraft. It's not about walking from Cherno to Berezino, because in reality people don't run everywhere. It's not about pretending that the game is real. At its core, role-playing is about immersion. It's about forgetting you are playing a game in a positive way, of course, not constantly reminding yourself that it's just a video game. This is why most DayZ players are actually playing the game wrong. That's right, it's actually possible to play an open-ended sandbox game wrong. I know, right? Because of how bare-bones and limited by its Arma 2 roots the mod was, its massive fanbase developed an incorrect way of playing it that still persists now that the game is a standalone and free of its shackles. Most people play it like it's a competitive game, something that I like to call deathmatching. This includes things like killing everyone you see on sight, as if that was the aim of the game, not ever speaking to the enemy, in other words interacting with your fellow players through speech, or only ever playing the game with people you know from outside of it, and avoiding all interaction with players you meet on your travels. The thing is, it's not a competitive game. You don't win anything by killing other players, it's not the aim of the game. The game doesn't have a goal. Other than providing a platform for immersive survival, if you're running around with your squad that's communicating over TeamSpeak and you are killing everyone else who are also deathmatching and doing the same thing you are, you really aren't immersing yourself into the game as much as you could. In other words, you aren't playing your game correctly. At this point, some of you will probably go, how do you know what DayZ is supposed to be? How do you know it's not supposed to be the sandbox deathmatch I want it to be? It's obvious. If it was not supposed to be immersive, why would they implement features such as using status text such as I feel hungry or I'm tired instead of using more video game like HUD elements for the same purpose? Why would they take a highly realistic design approach to the game's mechanics, favoring a quote-unquote clunky military simulator game engine over something that would provide a more fluid video game-ish experience? Why does the game have mechanics like direct communication, a voice communication where your voice originates from your character in the game world and only carries over a limited distance, thus replicating how real speech works? The game is, from its very foundations, supposed to be a realistic, immersive survival simulator. A role-playing game in a sense. Face it, you're not playing the game correctly. This brings me back to my original point. DayZ sucks. Why did I say that and praise the game for being great right after? Well, the game is a multiplayer game. The enjoyment of multiplayer games is often limited by the people you are playing it with. In the case of DayZ, if you're playing the game with people who are constantly making you remember it's just a video game, that really makes it harder to immerse yourself into it. So not only are they ruining their own immersion, they are also ruining other people's immersions as well. What could the developers of DayZ do about it? They could and probably also will add mechanics that encourage or force non-deathmatching player interaction in the game. For instance, among the very limited features of the current standalone alpha are item degradation, stuff breaking if it gets too damaged, and restraining players, which allows you to rob people without killing them. Then there is the blood type system for blood transfusions. If you're suffering from blood loss, you need to find a player with the same blood type as you are to give you a transfusion, or wait for your blood to regenerate over time, which is really slow. These mechanics have already greatly reduced deathmatching and non-immersive gameplay by a lot, but have not nearly eradicated it. However, if the current trend keeps up, DayZ might not suck anymore in a few months' time. On the off chance that the trend does not keep up and people keep playing the game like they currently do, I'm afraid the only way for it not to suck is to play it with a very select group of like-minded people who do not constantly break the immersion. I recently watched a great rant by a guy on YouTube about a very similar subject of immersion in multiplayer video games. It was more about World of Warcraft, but he really makes a good point that applies to DayZ as well. You should watch it, the link's right there and also in the description. In short, my point is, role-playing and immersion probably aren't exactly what you think they are. And if you don't want to immerse yourself into the game or roleplay a little, you really should be playing other types of games.